Hello, I'm your host Sarah, and this is Insane. This podcast is the narration of the guide entitled Wellbeing and Taqwa, which can be downloaded for free from the Insane Insan website. Defining Taqwa. The Arabic word Taqwa is mentioned 258 times in the Quran. Taqwa comes from the root word wiqaya, which means a person who has a constant awareness of God's presence and power. Taqwa has also been translated to Islamic piety, reverence, awareness, mindfulness, or being in a constant state of fear and God consciousness. Taqwa gains its relevance to the well-being question due to it being a Quranic concept associated with moment-by-moment awareness, which is a concept that exists within contemporary mindfulness, the practice of which is said to result in positive feelings like that of prosperity and safeguards against negative emotions like that of fear and grief. Within the Quran, there is evidence that supports the claim that taqwa leads to increased well-being and safeguards a person from negative feelings. This guide will explore this notion. For Al-Ghazali, taqwa is simply an expression for the restraint regulated by fear and is a virtue that arises through knowledge of God. Therefore, according to Al-Ghazali, taqwa manifests itself in the heart as fear, the feeling of which is postulated to subsequently motivate an individual to act in obedience to God. With respect to fear, Al-Ghazali states, the feeling of fear is like a raging fire that burns the heart and rots intelligence. Al-Ghazali warns against being emotionally overwhelmed by it, as if fear is not controlled, it intensifies and strengthens, causing sickness and hopelessness and depression. Al-Ghazali goes on to explain, the outcome of fear should never be despair or losing sight of God's mercy, but rather fear should motivate an individual to refrain from acts of disobedience and encourage good action. He quotes the saying, "Keep your wits, for God has never had a saint that was mentally deficient," and states the cure for excessive fear is hope. The Quran encourages the keeping of hope in God's mercy at all times. The following are examples of verses that associate the presence of taqwa, here translated as reverence, to positive well-being both in this world and the next. Chapter 6, Ayah 32 states, "The life of this world is naught but play and diversion. Better indeed is the abide of the hereafter for those who are reverent. Do you not understand?" In the Quran, in chapter 2, Ayah 194, "And reverence God, and know that God is with the reverent." In chapter 7, Ayah 35, "O children of Adam, should there come unto you messengers from among yourselves, recounting my signs unto you, then whosoever is reverent and makes amends, no fear shall come upon them, nor shall they grieve." In chapter 3, verse 200, "O you who believe, be patient, vie in patience, perseverance, and reverence of God, that haply you may prosper." In chapter 39, Ayah 61, "And God saves those who are reverent by their triumph. Evil will not befall them, nor will they grieve." According to Al-Ghazali, taqwa is not just the abstinence from sin, but also leaving that which may lead to sinning. This he terms sincere taqwa, and describes individuals in this state as possessing only that which is needed to survive in that moment in time, to the point where an individual does not even take a single breath except towards God. Al-Ghazali goes on to explain, the only way of safeguarding oneself from disobedience is through self-awareness and examination, including a complete awareness of every action at every moment. In his book entitled Fear and Hope, Al-Ghazali explains how taqwa can bring peace to the heart, explaining that when a person's heart is preoccupied with nothing but God, whilst living only in the present moment, they are not preoccupied with the future and therefore do not possess feelings of fear or hope. Accordingly, those who possess taqwa feel close to God at all times and can therefore only experience feelings of peace, bliss, and patience. After analysing the Quranic verses pertaining to taqwa, my research found that the practice of taqwa has both spiritual and social implications. The spiritual components being faith, Islamic rituals which include the prayer, repentance, forgiveness and remembrance of God. As for the social implications of taqwa, they include patience, emotional control, forgiveness, charity, justice, integrity, fulfillment of the covenant, chastity, truthfulness, and love for family. The Quranic verse below illustrates both the spiritual and the social aspects of taqwa. In chapter 2, verse 177, "It is not piety to turn your faces towards the east and the west. Rather, piety is he who believes in God, the last day, the angels, the book, and the prophets, and who give wealth despite loving it to kinsfolk, orphans, the indigent, the travellers, beggars, and for the ransom of slaves, and perform the prayer and give the alms, and for those who fulfill their oaths when they pledge them, and those who are patient in misfortune, hardship, and in moments of peril. It is they who are the sincere, it is they who are the reverent." In summary, the concept of taqwa is observed to connect the inner dimensions of awareness of God with outer action, where the awareness of God necessitates good action. Understandings of taqwa include a moment-by-moment awareness of God. This awareness of God is stipulated within the Islamic teachings to remind the individual of the afterlife and God's judgment, which acts as a motivation for good action. The concept of taqwa resonates with the concept of moment awareness found in contemporary mindfulness. In the contemporary context, moment awareness is conceptualized as bare attention to the present moment, whereas from an Islamic perspective, it is a present moment awareness of God. Therefore, the difference between Islamic and contemporary notions of present moment awareness is that within the Islamic understanding, it is not so much the presence of oneself that is advocated in the process of awareness, but rather that of God. End of guide. I hope you enjoyed that. Please do watch out for our next episode where I'll be discussing these concepts in more detail. Until then, do take care.